Hi, my name is Rita Maria Gignari, and I'm running for Sarasota County Commissioner. Today we've gathered at LeLu's Cafe in Siesta Key, and we're going to be discussing with citizens from this area the problems of red tide. It's been affecting our environment and our businesses, our local economy, people's health, and it's such a huge topic. So I don't want it to be about me. I really want to hear from voters and people who live here. So we're going to go around the room and we're going to actually introduce people, and they can just say their names and anything if they want about themselves, and then we'll get into the issues. If they can actually also state what their issues are about red tide and their concerns, that would be great. So we can get going. We'll start with Augie, perhaps.
Yes, hi.
I'm Augie Schmidt. I'm the precinct committeeman for 411, which is where you're sitting right now. We go all the way over to St. Boniface and all the way south. The red tide is not a new phenomenon as far as issues go. It's probably the most significant problem because people don't come to Sarasota in particular because of the climate. They come because of the beaches and the availability of the beaches. The biggest threat to the beaches is not red tide. It's beach access itself, which is being stolen by the developers. And the biggest theft is about to happen with the promenade. It will make it impossible to get to the beaches. They stole them half a mile of beach called Shell Road already this year earlier. And that is, so when you tell people to come here, they say, how much does it cost in season? And are there any jobs so I can stay year-round? And the answer is, if you're in the tourism business, there are jobs. If you're in the medical business, there are jobs. But otherwise, not much.
Right. Thank you. All right, let's go around here. Yes.
Hi. I'm Doreen DuPont. I have a waterfront home on Longboat Key, so I'm very concerned about the red tide, and I'm here to support Rita.
Thank you.
How you doing? I'm LeLu Grossman. I'm a fisherman. I'm also a Democrat, and I'm also very concerned about the red tide and believe that the red tide is an absolute environmental atrocity. It's an atrocity. It's a crisis that could be definitely tied back to the negligence of some of our government officials particularly on the state level, particularly Red Tide, Rick Scott, and also our federal and county level. And that's why I'm trying to support candidates who have a different environmental sensitivity, like Ruta, who want to turn this thing around. Now, we all know that red tide is naturally occurring, but it's also exacerbated by many human factors, by sewage spill-off. And I know that Johnny's going to be talking about this more than I am. I'm not an environmentalist, but the environmental policy has just not been acceptable, and I think that that's what I'm all about. Thank you.
Thanks. All right.
Hi, my name is Cat Randell, and I'm a local fire dancer, and I got together with a group of entertainers to shine a light on this issue, and we put together an event last week called Turn the Tide, which we brought together speakers, organizations, activists, and the public to talk to each other about potential solutions and actions they can take. And we're taking this movement forward where we're combining information, where we're teaching people action days, like there's a cleanup day tomorrow at Palma Soma in Bradenton, and there's a few more coming up which we're putting on our group page. We're just trying to organize that information and use our entertainment following to help spread the word so people know what they can do.
Awesome. Yes.
Hey, I'm Captain Jonnie Walker. I'm a fishing guide here in Sarasota. I've been fishing for 45 years here, and it has hit me directly. It has ruined my business. I've heard people say that their businesses have lost 50%. I've lost 100% of my business. Nobody wants to go fishing. There are no fish to catch right now in Sarasota Bay. You have to go to Tampa Bay or go out 10 or 12 miles in the Gulf to find any viable fish populations. I'm really upset with our current administration. They have failed us completely. From the time Rick Scott got into office, he has done everything he can to cut back on environmental issues. He has taken the money away from the restoration of the Everglades. and used it for other projects. We voted back in, I think it was '05 or '06, that we would want to give, I think 75% of the population said that they wanted to help restore the Everglades and repair the problems that are coming out of Okeechobee. That money never got used for that. So we need to get somebody in office that's going to change everything. And I don't care if they're Democrat or Republican. I saw a great sign the other day, and it said vote, and it had Republican, it had Democrat, and it had a big check next to water. Vote for the water. Water and the views and the beaches that we have here are what bring people here. If we don't have that, we have nothing here.
Thanks.
Hello, I'm Jane Zeff. I am a fan, a fan of Ruta Mary. I think she is an amazing human being. What? No. She's an amazing human being, and she really cares about the community in which she lives. She does a lot of wonderful things, and the county commissioner is a very important position, and we need Ruta.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, I'm Vitus Mongerdas. I'm Ruta's brother, and I really come from Connecticut, so I'm not familiar with Sarasota's issue. But I will say this. A lot of times I think we depend on officials at every level to do the right things. And sometimes that does not happen, and it's the coalition of people sometimes that make the changes occur. And I strongly suggest the only way to overcome this is people getting together against that.
Thanks. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Carl Zeff. I hope that we can get together with Ruta and whoever to get rid of the red tide. I like to fish. I haven't been fishing in months. Plus, I know it hurts a lot of people in business. Please help us find something.
Is there anyone else who'd like to introduce themselves? Yes?
Hi, thank you for this opportunity. My name is Jo Goldis, and in addition to the environment, I want to mention how serious the red tide is with health issues. I was in an oncology doctor's office the other day, and he told me that 90% of the oncology patients that he has had a cough from this red tide. So that's another factor. And like each person can make a difference, just tiny little steps. So, I mean, I came out today, my friend Rose is here today, and if you all just do your little part, we can make a difference. Thank you.
Anyone else? Go ahead.
Hi, it's LeLu Grossman again. I agree with Cat Walker. If we can find a bipartisan solution, this would be great. Problem is that I just don't see any bipartisan solution to it right now. See, there's been environmental sensitivity. Look, we've all known about this red tide. I've been hearing from fishing captains for 3-4 years. I've been here 6 years. They know that there's, that the governor had loosened the sewage outlet rules. They know that the governor has deregulated environmental rules in this state. So if we can find a bipartisan solution, it would be great. But right now, our hope is not in the Republican Party. Our hope is in the Democrat Party. And when this red tide leaves, if it does leave, when it does leave, we should know that these conditions with sewage, with the lack of understanding of climate change, with the pesticides that are runoff, we know these conditions are still going to be there. So in October, November, when everybody's out on the beach again, we can't forget about this, because it's going to happen again. And what happened this year was worse, I believe, Johnny, than it's ever been that you know of.
I've seen them as bad, but I've never seen as many mammals die
Yeah.
and turtles die
Right.
as I have than this one.
And that's what I was going to say. I mean, the endangered species. I mean, yeah, it hurts our businesses. It hurts our pleasure. But these animals are endangered. You're talking about manatees. I don't know what the number's up to. So, you know, our environment is just falling apart from this. So when this red tide eases, we need people like Ruta who know what the story is, like Johnny who knows what the story is, that we got to keep this pressure up, because it's going to happen again. It's going to happen worse again. And this was neglect that we knew about. I've been hearing fishing captains for years talk about, well, I saw sewage coming out here, and sewage, you know, the red tide feeds on sewage. Red tide feeds on pesticides.
I wouldn't say sewage, but I'd say nutrients
Okay,
in the
nutrients.
water. I mean, it's not raw sewage coming in the bay or anything like that that feeds red tide. It is nutrients, and there's land-based nutrients, there is industrial nutrients, there is agricultural nutrients that come off the land, come down the rivers, come down the creeks, the culvert pipes, whatever. This creates algae. Now, as the algae dies, the red tide actually feeds on that algae, and that is what exacerbates the red tide. It makes it worse. I mean, it's they just had a big meeting today at I don't know if you got to go to it, probably not, because it was Argus Foundation. I think had a big meeting today, and Dr. Crosby and some of the scientists from the state and everything else were there, and they have finally said, and as consensus of all of them said, yes, the red tide is fed by the nutrients that come off of all those algae and stuff.
And I think that's a big step, actually, for most
It is. It's a huge step.
It was, because
Right.
they weren't addressing the fact that whether it's Lake Okeechobee that's also feeding off and pushing up
Right.
nutrients.
And people have to realize, you know, I really get upset when I see the things on Facebook, you know, the red tide's coming out of Lake Okeechobee. No, the red tide does not come out of Lake Okeechobee. Red tide comes from offshore.
Exactly.
It comes in close to shore. All the nutrients come off the land, come into shore, and along the beaches, and they meet. And this is when you start to have these huge blooms and have all this death and destruction. And you're really right, Lou, about keeping this going. And it has happened. It happened in 2005 when we had a very bad red tide. It was just as bad as this one. Just didn't kill as many manatees. It wiped out the bay. But you know, the next year everybody forgot about it. The water got clear again. People are sitting in their house looking out. There's birds out there. I'm happy. You know, most people that live on the water, on Longboat or Siesta or wherever, they don't look at the fish that much. They don't care about fishing that much. But boy, if you ruin that view and there's dead fish on the beach and it stinks, now they're going to complain. But as soon as the dead fish go away and there's no smell anymore, it's okay. You know.
That's correct. It wasn't 06, but
05.
well, I lived here too, so and I've been here since '78. So that's a fair amount of time, 50 years. The dead fish, his point is huge, but every advertisement you see about Florida, it'll #1 beach, all the beautiful pictures, #1 beach, and fish aren't mentioned. They really don't push that point.
Right.
So the loss here, if we lose that, that's why I brought up the access to the beaches. It will not matter if the red tide goes away and the beaches are clear and all that's clear, but you can't get to the public beach because they got timed parking for the public beach, which is coming, and the promenade will make it so you have to shuttle out here. I live out here, so I won't have a problem. But other people will want to get here, and it'll be terribly costly to be here. And they've knocked out a ½ mile of beach already on Shell Road. They gave it away. This county commission gave away a ½ mile called Shell Road, including the beach, and had access points on that part. And the other thing is, Longboat Key. Try to go to the beach on Longboat. There's a long beach there. That's why they call it Longboat. You can't get to the beach. There's no parking for the access points. And as they dry up the access points, they drive away the public. So the motivation to come here, the beaches, is going to go away, and the business right with it. Whether the fish die or the fish stay alive will not matter. The industry what you've got out here in Siesta Key, in the village, is a dying business situation. Now, this is off-season, so that's not such a problem. They kind of expect to go through this low tide. But if you're going to make a case, if you make a case for the fish, pardon me, nobody will give a damn.
But I have to disagree, because we have captains and fishing boat charters going out daily, and if they don't have business, guess what? Business goes down for everyone, including not only here, but they go down at the pizza shop, they go down for waiters and waitresses. It hurts an entire industry. I disagree with you.
Well, you can disagree all day long.
Yeah.
I know you're the candidate, and you're supposed to know more than I am. But I think I do know more about this. If the fishing dies tomorrow completely, the beaches are clear and the water is clear, the people will continue to come. The bulk of people come to the beach. They don't come for fishing.
I agree they don't come for fishing, but right now, before the promenade issue, we still have the issue of red tide where nobody's coming right now. And people who live here, we're having respiratory problems. We have wildlife dying. So I agree the promenade...
I live within a block of the beach. Okay.
I understand, but I'm just saying your concern of the promenade, I understand it's a concern, but I'm saying that right now we're focusing on red tide today.
I don't understand. What part of Shell Road did you say that they closed?
Well, if
you mean back in the 50s?
No, right now. They closed it this year.
Shell Road.
They have a gate at either end, and it's a public road. It says Shell. If you go to the three-way light,
I go to Shell Road all the time.
You don't drive it now, sir. You can't get on. You have to have a card to get in. It's a private gate. So
that's always been there since the 50s.
Well, what's been there since the 50s?
That's not true. Shell Road was closed, yes, but it was closed in the 50s.
No,
and Shell Road went from North Shell Road to South Shell Road. That was Shell Road.
Right.
On the beach. On the beach.
Let's go back to red tide.
South Shell Road has been closed for years.
Yes, Doreen, please.
I don't think we're going to have dead oceans without fish and nice beaches. It's connected there.
There's a relationship, but it's secondary. I'm sorry.
I think we're all not to my hundreds of customers, and not for the hundreds of guides that work here in Sarasota. You know,
Catherine, we can argue all day long what's more important, but let me tell you why.
If the bay is dead, nobody will come. If the Gulf is dead, nobody will come.
So you're saying the Gulf is dead?
No, I say if it does die.
It is dying. It is dying, and that's what we're here to talk about today.
Listen, I think we're all on the same page here. I don't think there's much disagreement. I mean, whether it's the beach or whether it's the fish or anything. I mean, if the red tide goes away, we still gotta be united, and we still gotta fight this. Now, this has a domino effect.
What are you fighting?
This has a domino effect. Okay, so domino effect affects businesses. Affects these businesses here. It could affect the amount of tourism. It could affect real estate values. Affect our whole area. So it's something that. What do we want to fight? We want to fight environment. We want to have environmental regulations that prevent this from happening in the future, and keep our community healthy, and keep our economy healthy. And if we disregard this, it's going to happen again. And this has been national news. I'm worried about what's going to happen to us right now. So if this clears up and then it happens next year,
the red tide will be gone by October.
Okay, that's what I'm saying.
You're going to guarantee.
Amy says, vote them out. Get rid of Tide Rick.
Wait a minute. You are not going to guarantee the red tide is going to be gone at any
Red
time.
tide came in September. It didn't leave until February.
Pardon me?
2 years ago, red tide came in. It wasn't as bad as this, but it was here in September, and it did not leave until into February. Now, excuse me, that's a long time, okay? And it didn't stay in one place. It rotated all through the bay.
Okay, when did the red tide begin?
Here?
Here?
Here? It had to happen right after the July 4th weekend. It was started
July,
to happen.
August, and now
Because it was south of us that it hadn't got here. We started to get southwest winds, and it blew it up along the beach, and that's when we started to get it bad. But it was south of us since back in early spring.
When did the outflow into the Gulf from Okeechobee come? When did that happen?
In that first rain that we had in March.
So that's when that started.
When we had that 16 inches of rain in 2 days in March.
So then you know also about the outflows of Whitaker Bayou on Sarasota City, right? You know about that?
Yes. I used to keep a boat there, and I know exactly what you're talking about. How much outflow comes out of there?
I don't know what that is.
Okay.
So to make this point clear,
I'm going to bring the conversation over here.
My question is, that's okay. My name is Michelle. I've lived on Siesta Key for almost 20 years now. Last week, Siesta Key was closed for elevated fecal indicator bacteria. Sorry, I wanted to mention that last week, Siesta Key Beach was closed due to elevated levels of fecal indicator bacteria. So separate from the red tide, water quality is a complicated thing, and there are issues that affect our water quality that we can measure quantitatively besides just red tide, and one of those is fecal indicator bacteria. And our beaches were closed last week because of elevated levels. And the press release from the county mentioned...
Is it still closed? Is it still closed?
Can I
let her speak.
Thank you. I'd be happy to answer a question after, but I'd like to finish speaking. So, the press release mentioned that they attributed some of that to birds and the rack on the beach. But we know just a few years ago we spent millions of dollars to retrofit one of the old drainage outfall pipes on Siesta. There remain close to a dozen additional drainage outfall pipes on Siesta. Venice Beach was also closed last week. That's due to the flamingo drainage pipe, which they did not end up spending all the money to retrofit properly. So my question is to you, in context of water quality, beyond just the red tide conversation, this is something that our commissioners have control over.
Absolutely.
So as commissioner, what thoughts and ideas do you have about those issues?
Sure. I think one of the first things we do have to address are the drainage systems and making sure that they're up to date. The water quality has gone down, and I have read that it was in Siesta, it was in Venice, and we need to revamp that. I think as a commission, we have to address water quality today. We also have to address things like fertilizers that right now currently we just have a few months window on a ban. I think we can ban those for the entire year and get rid of those fertilizers. I think small steps that we can do as individuals with using pesticides can be a start. But as a commission and as a commissioner, I would propose immediately that we start looking at all the drainage and making sure that they're up to date, that we have good systems for cleaning the water. I'm also worried about our aquifers. Because our aquifers too are getting pollutants in constantly, and we're taking away more and more wetlands by overdeveloping them, which is a natural cleaner, and so instead of making it better, we're making it worse by increasing the density of the population of Sarasota County and taking over protected wetlands. So I think as a commissioner, I really want to make sure we stay with this comp plan that we have, the 2050 plan, for east of the county to protect wetlands, so it sort of acts as a buffer, a natural buffer. The other thing I'd like to see is mangroves, getting more protection and regrowing mangroves, because those are also a natural cleaner for our bays. I just recently saw a picture where we had oyster beds and we had clams replanted. They're gone. They're dying out because of, between the fecal matter and the red tide algae bloom, everything that they went ahead and planted, they wanted to repopulate the clam population. Well, it's dead. It's gone. And I was actually speaking to a person who goes and rebuilds coral reefs, and he said the coral reefs are destroyed in this area. So this is something that we need as a commission, not just to propose, things for today, but we have to look to the future and to the future generations. And as a commissioner, I really want to go on an environmental platform when we start looking at this today, because every dollar that, there were some scientists that actually said, for cleanup, every dollar we do today for preventative measures actually will save us approximately $7 in the future for cleanup costs. So as a commission, even from a financial viewpoint, it's better for us to manage it today, clean it today, take care of it today, so that down the road we don't have to run into these problems. So like I said, those are some of the things that I'd like to see as a start. I want to see local people get active. I think for people, this is one thing that I do have some issues with, that the locals are having to go and clean up the fish. And why isn't, I really still think there's phosphates and nitrates that are getting caused by big agriculture and big sugar that caused a lot of this. Why aren't they sending cleaning crews? Why are we relying on our citizens to have to clean up this mess? I don't think it's fair.
We pay for our tax dollars. We subsidize big sugar to up pump it into Lake Okeechobee.
You know, big sugar is not a new thing. Big sugar has been going on for a long time. My wife and I used to bass, tournament bass, and we fished Okeechobee. And you would fish the north side of Okeechobee. It was very beautiful, clear water, great fishing. You go down to the south end and it would be muddy and nasty. Now somebody said the other day, Big Sugar hasn't been back pumping in the last 2 years. But the thing is, they back pumped for 50 years before that. There is all that sediment and stuff that's built up on the south end of Lake Okeechobee that every time that we have the heat that makes all this algae grows, it starts blooming again.
So they need to clean it up.
They should.
They should.
But
Yeah,
I've talked to an attorney. We had a big meeting last night with another group about red tide, and we talked. There was an attorney there, and I talked to him about, the reason Big Sugar is fighting this so bad, putting so much money into this, and putting so much false information in the media about where the nutrients are coming from. They're saying there's septic tanks up the Kissimmee River. There's nothing up the Kissimmee River until you get to Orlando. I mean, there's nothing in there. So, but he said if a scientist could prove that pollution and the red tide is caused, by that pollution coming down and mixing with the red tide makes it worse, that everybody would be suing them. So they're going to fight it tooth and nail, and it's a big problem.
Johnny, on this point, when the Gulf didn't receive the outflows until the recent year or two, because before it always went to the Atlantic side, and when they started pumping it to the west, this thing got worse.
Yeah, well, it's not always. They've pumped it both ways usually, but not as much in the Caloosahatchee as they do up in St. Lucie.
Right.
If you go over there and look at the locks and watch them, we drove back from Miami the other day, and I drove through Moorhaven and Clewiston and just looked, and all the canals from the sugarcane fields were half full. And with all this rain, they should be brimming with water. Why can't they pump that water down those canals into the Everglades, where the Everglades will suck it up?
They
would
suck
love
it up. And that's the thing, it's like they took the natural course of where this water should release from Okeechobee and go south and go through the Everglades where it can be absorbed. And the fact that they're pumping it east and west is ridiculous, and damming it. And now though too, they created a natural disaster that, if God forbid a hurricane comes and they have to release those dams, they're going to wipe out entire communities on both sides because of the flooding that they would have to do to release the river, to release the lake.
But one of the reasons they don't pump it down there is because it's not clean enough to pump into the Everglades. Because the Everglades have rules and regulations of what water can go into them.
No, it's extremely toxic
and
right now.
you cannot, by law, pump the water out of Lake Okeechobee into the Everglades
No,
right
it's
now.
too
Because
toxic.
federal rules.
Federal.
It's too nasty.
It's too
so
toxic.
they pump it out the
It's
rivers
extremely
into the
toxic.
Atlantic and into the Gulf. So.
So what kind of legislation, what I'd like to know is what kind of legislation can we introduce, local and state, to stop the dumping period? We know the problems, we know the sources, we know what's happening. What do we do, especially as regular citizens? Can we get behind class action lawsuits because of loss of business? What can we actually do?
Well, I think one of the first things, and not because I'm running for office, but truly because of the legislation and how it works, you have to get somebody who's an environmental protection person into the governor's office. That's a start. And from there, you take it into the legislative branch, put them in the Senate, and put them into the House of Representatives here in Tallahassee. That's the only way to start building back the environmental protection, who's going to actually start holding the Big Sugar accountable. Because right now they have a green light, and until you change that governor's office, No one's going to introduce legislation because those are the donors to these people. So if you're getting $3 million from Big Sugar to run for your Senate race, guess what? Even now as governor, you're not going to put forth any legislation against Big Sugar because it's not in your interest that they're donating $3 million in your bank account to run for office. So we have to make sure we fix that first. And if come November we get somebody in and everybody truly votes somebody in who's an environmentalist, you'll start seeing a change coming down. It has to come from the top down. From the bottom up, we have to take action on a local level in the sense of, you know, what we can do as individuals, form neighborhood associations to start, you know, being better to our environment locally, making sure that old septic tanks aren't leaking and that they're up to date. There's things that we can do here, but to introduce local level legislation for the environment is extremely difficult. They're taking away more and more home rule. Tallahassee's trying to take a lot of home rule legislation out from the committee, like for the county commissioners. We're not allowed to introduce a lot because Tallahassee wants to have final say. So we have to make sure that what we can do in the parameters as commissioners is the maximum for protections. We have to make sure our business people are taking care of this community. Our environment relies on tourism, our economy, and it relies on the environment, because when the red tide comes, when there's issues with that, it does affect every line of business here. And if you're talking small businesses, which is the bulk of the businesses in this county, we don't have big commercial industrial plants here. It's service oriented, and when you cut into that, how now, after losing weeks and weeks of income, is it going to take you to regenerate that? I own a business myself. I know it's a long time, and it hurts you. It hurts every single aspect. It hurts your employees. It hurts you. It hurts everybody. And so, as a business person, I do put businesses ahead a lot of the time because they're the ones who are driving the economic driver behind this community. And if we start losing captains to go out to leave to the other coast, it's extremely, you will have a dead city. And then good luck selling property, buying property here, everything collapses. So we have to address this seriously, and the commissioners do.
There is one thing that people have an opportunity to do. It's single-member district. Who is not aware of that?
That's a great thing to
We're
address.
going to have that in another coffee talk.
But it is
maybe
something.
another time, but nothing will happen. And that's the only way to take out the developer control. If you vote within districts. You're in District 4 right now where you're sitting. What district are you representing? 2. District 2. And the guy who you're running against?
Christian Ziegler?
Christian Ziegler. He's arch conservative.
He's not an environmentalist, that's for sure. I will tell you he is not.
Well, the point of this is, if you can have argument among your commissioners about what to do instead of what the developers say, yeah, vote 4-1 against
absolutely.
That's
and
what
I
you got
agree
right
with
now.
that. And I
rubber stamp everything.
Absolutely.
Rubber stamp everything.
That is absolutely
true. I led the effort back in '92. We had it on the ballot. It got voted in. One person got elected that way. It cost him $5,000 to run back in the '90s to run for county commission. He won this district at the time. When he had to run it, and they put it on the ballot 3 times to kill it, and they finally killed it. Got the people to vote it out, and then it cost him $50,000 to run the second time for the same district against Nora Patterson.
And today it's $175,000 to run the county, to run for the seat.
Last couple minutes.
I totally agree with you, sir. The single-member district is critical.
That's your avenue
and,
to escape from this.
But it's so difficult to explain to people. We have a lot of education to why that's important.
I want you to start with that. Why is it difficult?
Why is it? Because people don't understand.
Well, then why don't you say what it is?
That's what we're trying to do.
We'll have a show.
But I think also when you hear candidates talk about, I'm for business and I'm for deregulation and I'm for, strictly for business. Deregulation is a code name for not really caring about the environment. We need regulation here. We need
We do.
enforcement.
It drives our
Um,
economy. It
so-
does. The regulation for environmental protection absolutely drives this economy. And we also have a responsibility to our environment. We have sensitive lands. We have amazing wildlife here, from manatees to dolphins to the birds. I mean, and that's an attraction in itself to this area. So we have to protect it, and we have to have short-term and long-term goals, because short-term goals, we do have people with respiratory problems, serious ones. We have tourists. When I was here at Siesta Key for that event of holding hands across the beach, we actually had tourists coming in from Croatia. They were here with a baby. We told them, go back, go back. We're like, don't go. And they didn't speak a lot of English. And they went to the beach. They came back. Their little one was like, and I'm like, this is horrible. And so we have to have short-term fixes somehow to address this. And then we need long-term goals, because, like you said, we don't want people to forget, because they do forget. As soon as that ocean turns blue, all of a sudden you're going to forget this happened. And you know, the fishermen, well, they have to recoup their losses. Then they're going to be forgotten that they had, you know, months and weeks without income. We forget that what we did to our environment. How are we going to recoup those 436 manatees that died? How are we going to recoup all those dolphins that died? We can't get those back. And so we have to make sure, like I said, if we leave with anything, we need to sit down as a community. And I think the commissioners, this current commissioner panel, has not addressed this once. And I think they owe all the citizens a meeting, a town hall meeting, to address issues on red tide. So I'll leave it if anyone has any last comment.
When you get on the commission, I want you to try to work on the fertilizer thing for yards and stuff, because we were talking to my son is yard maintenance, and he does yard maintenance. He said, what happens, the guys know when the cutoff date is. They will over-fertilize yards, dump it on there like mad, because they know they're going to have to sit there for 3 or 4 months without any fertilizer on them. So that overdumps it, and then we get the rain. That's right at the beginning of June, and we get the rain. It washes it all off into the bay.
It does.
You know, and I mean, that's one of our main things. We should go back to natural fertilizers,
Absolutely.
all organic fertilizers.
Any last final comments?
Any last thoughts or
Thank
comments?
you, Rhoda, for doing this. I would just cut off on a point of clarification, and that's single member district is just district voting within itself. Right now, county commissioners run from a district, but they have to run countywide to get elected. Right. That's important to know that. So who pays for that are the developers. They want you to have to run countywide. Then you're dependent on them for money. So if you keep the election limited to that district, you've got a chance to change things. Otherwise, all this nice, lovely, caring, compassionate talk doesn't go for anything. You're not going to physically change a thing without going to district voting.
Are we voting on that?
Yes.
Whatever it's on the ballot. Yes, that's the point.
Which number is it? Do you know?
No, 8 got taken out. No, 8's off the
It's by
ballot.
itself.
It's by itself. It's a county. It's not the CRC. It's a county.
They got
There's
15,000 petitions signed.
And actually a fourth one now
They put
got
it on
on.
the ballot. Kendra Munt from the Sarasota Free SAFE got it put on the ballot. And now they want to up the petition number as well. So they don't want it. The developers don't want it.
And we'll have a coffee talk on all of that to clarify. We will.
Yeah.
So I think this is important that we get together. I'd love to do this again soon. I want to hear it. Like, are things progressing at all on the business side? I'd like to see what we're doing as a community on community level. I think it's important to meet with people. And like I said, I'm sad that our commissioners aren't, because until we hear everybody's stories and everyone's problems, they're not doing anything, and they're silent. We do this every Friday, at 5 o'clock. Somewhere. Well, we decided we pick a coffee place and we'll do it. And like I said, I encourage all citizens to get together, and that's the only way we can make change. It really is. I truly believe that.
It's like when they had this new thing about the bayfront, and they were discussing what they were going to do with the boat ramps. Until a bunch of us guides and fishermen got together and finally went to one of the meetings, And we showed up in mass, and it scared them.
It scares them.
Yeah, and then they changed everything they were going to do.
Numbers really matter.
And if they had a thing about red tide right now during the part of the red tide, they'd have to hire the Van Wezel.
They would,
and do it there.
and it would be sold out
because there'd be so many people.
But and I think maybe they're afraid. I really do. I
that's
think it's just fear, and it's sad that the commissioners that are supposed to represent us are afraid of us.
Right.
It says a lot about the commission, and I think that's a sad statement, actually.
Okay. Thank you, Ruta, for doing this. Really appreciate this.
Thank you. All right. Join us next week.
Yeah, so join us next Friday at 5 o'clock, and I thank all of you for being concerned citizens. Thank you. So, no, and thank you, guys.